Thank you, Garrett Haake, for joining us. It's
my pleasure.
Truly an honor to get to sit down and talk with you, especially here at SMU. And you've accomplished a lot. You've covered Congress. You're currently a senior White House correspondent for NBC News, but you're also an SMU journalism alum. And while homecoming is a few weeks away, this is a homecoming of sorts for you. What does it mean to be giving the Sammons Lecture tonight?
Well, it's a huge honor to be back. I mean, I remember being in these same spaces, learning how to do the stuff that's now my bread and butter. I remember going to some of the lectures when we had speakers come in like Anderson Cooper, and how impactful it was on me to see the people who were doing the jobs I hoped to have someday. So to get to come back and speak a little bit about what I've learned so far in my post-SMU career is just, it really is a great honor.
Yeah, you've done a lot, and you're still kind of present here in the hallways. You know, a lot of the professors will kind of mention your name and bring your reporting up in class. We'll just kind of see it and be like, "That's the standard." So we've got a lot of big shoes to fill. But yeah, kind of going from there, take us back to your start. What was it like, kind of coming from SMU, kind of getting to where you are now?
I think I had a pretty classic college experience in the sense that I really didn't know exactly what it was I wanted to do. I knew broadly what I was interested in, but trying to figure out how to turn that into a job was tricky. I dabbled in sports. I debated leaving journalism to do something else entirely for a while. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do local TV or to try to find something that I couldn't quite get my head around. And I was really lucky that I had a professor who understood that and helped me find good internship opportunities, including ultimately one with NBC Nightly News in New York that I did the summer before my senior year. And that was really transformative for me, seeing how a network news broadcast came together and getting to work with some of these people who were idols of mine, like Brian Williams, who was the anchor at the time.
Yeah.
And that, I think, gave me a little bit more direction. So when I graduated, they offered me a job back as a desk assistant, bottom of the barrel. It's like half editorial journalism work and half clerical. I was literally making copies and sorting the mail. Yeah. But again, I got to learn from so many people, and I worked my way up at Nightly through a succession of other jobs, and that ultimately led me to the thing that I think really kickstarted my career to where I am now, which was to be a campaign embed. The 2012 presidential election cycle, you basically get trained up for a few weeks, given a camera and some equipment, and sent out to cover a presidential campaign. I was living out of a suitcase for a year and a half covering the Romney campaign. And I tell people it's the best job I would never want to do again. Yeah. You get like a graduate degree in politics and political journalism. You learn all these skills. You totally blow up your personal life and your health and everything else. But that really, I think, set it for me that I wanted to be a reporter, and I wanted to be a political reporter in particular. And from there, it was just sort of a succession of other jobs and opportunities. I was a local reporter in Kansas City. Then I moved to Washington, D.C. and was a local reporter for a CBS affiliate there. After President Trump won in 2016, NBC and I started talking again. They were looking to hire more political reporters, ideally people with experience, in red states and covering Republicans. And I had all that from my time with Romney and in Kansas City and all that. And I had relationships with NBC already, so it was a pretty natural fit. And they brought me back in 2017, and I've covered basically everything under the sun since then, and at the White House since the beginning of this year, which is, a whole beast in and of itself that we'll talk about at the lecture tonight.
Yes. Whether you're in the Oval Office or traveling with the president, you've had access to some of the most powerful leaders in Washington. What has that responsibility meant to you as a journalist to represent the American public in those spaces?
Yeah, I mean, the responsibility is a heavy thing. I mean, so much, especially covering the White House, the opportunities that you get with the president are very rarely yours alone or just your news organizations. Much of what happens with the president, you are serving as a member of the pool, where, for me as a television reporter, you're serving as the eyes and ears for all of the television networks and all of their audiences. And that's not lost on me. I might want to ask him about one particular thing, but understand there's a broader interest and a broader audience who needs different types of questions about different types of news of day and different, answers from the president, who has so much authority across the whole government, and especially in this White House where they really have consolidated a lot under the White House. I have a strategy of trying to ask kind of the most open-ended questions possible with the president, just because I think it's incumbent upon me to try to get people to understand the way he thinks. It's not my job to change his mind. It's not my job to create viral moments. It's my job to illuminate the way the most powerful person on the planet is thinking and why he's making the decisions that he's making in the name of our viewers and his voters. And so that's kind of the attitude I take to it. I will say, the setting often reinforces that feeling, whether you're on Air Force One or you're in the Oval Office. I mean, you are constantly reminded that this is not some other job with some other, person. This is the president, and the decisions made in those places matter a great deal.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And it currently feels like we're in an environment where the press is being criticized quite a bit. The administration sometimes can do that as well. What ethical influences do you kind of take into consideration when you're covering the White House?
Yeah, I mean, I will say the press is almost always being criticized. You go back from administration to administration, nobody thinks we are giving them the credit that they deserve. There's always an attitude of blaming some of your problems on the press or treating us as oppositional figures. I don't take any of that personally, and I do to some degree wear it as a badge of honor. I mean, our job is not to make any administration's job easier. It's to hold them accountable for the things that they've promised to their voters who are our viewers. I mean, we take fairness seriously, we take accuracy seriously. At NBC, we have a very robust system to make sure, like, any package I do, any completed story I turn for Nightly News or for the Today Show, goes through several levels of vetting to make sure that we are being accurate and fair and putting things in the correct context. And that's the job. It is not to make the White House or any other organization feel good about what we're doing. It's to sort of accurately create that first draft of history. And that's the standard I try to hold myself to.
Yeah, because that context and that accuracy, it truly, truly matters because it has a really big impact. President Trump has often used social media as a way to kind of inform the public, kind of foregoing the press in a way, especially for kind of big announcements and things that have gone on. For example, over the summer in June, when President Trump had said there was a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, kind of releasing that through Truth Social. How do you navigate reporting those breaking stories when information's kind of coming through those channels?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is another thing where administrations are always looking for ways to get their message out without going through what they can sometimes see as a filter of the media and communicating directly with the public where they can. For the president, in his first term, it was Twitter. Now it's Truth Social. I will say, I think he's actually more traditional with the way he uses it most of the time now. As we're doing this interview, he just finished a flight in which he posted like 30-something times on his way to the UK. So I say that within that context. But they treat the Truth Social posts almost like press releases now. It's the way in which he likes to communicate. He can do it largely unfiltered. As the White House has kind of consolidated their messaging, they have fewer spokespeople than other administrations. They funnel more things through the White House, and they funnel more things up through the president and through his social media. It used to be in other administrations, for example, if the president would have a call with a foreign leader, you'd have the National Security Council, some spokesperson there, staffers would put together a readout of here's what was discussed. It would be run through an interagency process. There'd be all these other eyes on it. Now that's not done. Now it comes directly from the president himself. The White House points to that and says, this is us. This is sort of maximum transparency here. It's straight from the president's mouth. I think there are some people who wonder if there's a lack of rigor in the review that goes into that kind of thing. And that may very well be true, but I think there is also the value of it being a very rough draft in the sense that, like, you can really, the better you get at reading the president and understanding his tone, get a lot of a sense of what's going on, even if it's not in the words, but in the way that he puts these messages together, that I think can be instructive. But it is its own, translating hieroglyphics a little bit to be fully trying to understand what he's talking about at any given time, the way he uses social media.
Yeah. And do you think that that changes the president's relationship with the press, kind of having that just direct messaging kind of going out?
It definitely does, and I think it also creates this dynamic where sometimes you have to make a choice between covering what he's saying or posting on social media and covering what he's actually doing. And I think there is a tendency, and this goes back to the first term, to leap onto some of these social media posts, which are almost designed to get our attention or to distract more so than they are designed to convey a message. I mean, I'm thinking about a recent example where he posted this AI-generated meme of himself in military fatigues, and it was Shypocalypse Now, you know, after the Apocalypse Now movie, and it was all when this discussion was going on about that they were going to send the National Guard to Chicago. And the meme was very aggressive and very kind of in your face. There's going to be, you know, war in Chicago. He and Democratic politicians got a lot of questions about it. But, you know, to this date now, there's been no such deployment in Chicago. And so I think the social media are an important tool for him. I think it's an important touch point for us in the media, but it's not everything, right? It's another tool and another means of communication, but it's not, I think there's a danger in looking at it too closely as too indicative of something that it may not always be.
Right. And going to your reporting, you recently reported on tariffs the White House has implemented, even amid some Supreme Court challenges. How do you see the administration weighing the economic consequences against the political considerations?
The president believes in the power of tariffs to solve almost any problem. It is the ultimate Swiss Army knife for him. It is a tool that he sees as at his disposal, basically unilaterally as president, to address economic issues, to address foreign policy issues, to put pressure on foreign governments and on domestic political, you know, foes or industries that he thinks needs to change. I think that's a perfect example of exactly the kind of power that needs a lot of scrutiny from the press. And he's getting a lot of scrutiny from the courts right now. It will ultimately be the Supreme Court that's going to decide if he has the authority that he thinks he does. But especially when the president is saying, this is a unilateral power I have, Congress, you're not involved in this decision, courts were going to appeal what you put out there. There's a limits to what we can do, but sort of maximally shining a light on issues like that, I think is such a core First Amendment responsibility that journalists have. And I've really, dove into that reporting around the tariffs, not having any background knowledge in the economic principles about it at all, and having to kind of educate myself along the way. But I think it is so core to his conception of his powers that I think it definitely invites a lot of extra scrutiny. Yeah,
it does. It does. And kind of going as an overview as we wrap up, it seems like there's a lot of tension around, and we had a pretty negative past last week. What's something that you're hopeful for, whether it be in the world or just in journalism in general?
Well, I will say on the journalism front, I think the idea that, journalism is fading or that, traditional news is going away, I just think it's something that I just don't buy. And I was talking about this with one of the professors earlier today, that I remember being an intern and being told, this network newscast, it's all going away. And that was almost 20 years ago now, and we still have millions and millions of viewers who tune in every night. I think the desire to be informed and to be part of a conversation is as great as it's ever been. And I think we're going through this weird transformation now of our industry that I think makes a lot of people nervous. We see a lot more independent journalism happening, a lot more smart uses of video happening. And I go back and forth because I'm watching the industry change, and while that can be kind of scary, it is very refreshing to me to see some of the creative new ways in which people are putting smart journalism out there.
Yeah.
And the way in which I think the public is recognizing that there is a need for them to stay on top of this. And it's very much a partnership that, I can only put so much reporting out there if people aren't choosing to be educated on it. And I do feel like we're in a moment where people are dialed in and they're choosing to go out and seek out information to help them be better citizens in this very complicated moment. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, especially kind of thinking more about new innovations, especially for social media. I look to the Washington Post. I love their TikToks and how they can kind of explain things in a more fun way for Gen Z and just younger people, and especially here on campus. A lot of people have been kind of tuning in and being more aware, looking at social media. Is this AI? Is it not AI? What are we taking in? What are we reading? So I guess it leaves us in a good note to know that people still care, especially young people care, and journalism isn't going anywhere.
Right, we may have to find new ways to present it, but the mission continues, and we're going to get quality information in front of you, whether it's on a TV screen or on your phone or on your watch. I mean, stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Well, thank you so much, Garrett. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to your lecture tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.